In Mel Brooks's movie, The History of the World, Part 1, he plays a number of characters, and one of them is King Louis XVI, right before the French Revolution. And while in that role, he would keep pausing to glance at the camera and say, "It's good to be the king," right after he did something that anyone else would have gotten a lot of trouble for. And setting aside how accurate that portrayal of King Louis XVI is, it's definitely true that there's a lot of people in every time and in every place that when given power and authority, started to use it just for themselves, started to do all the things that their power allowed them to do that no one else could. And really, they got corrupted by that power. And it didn't matter exactly what that power was, whether it was the power of the king, or a senator, or a general, or a CEO, or the captain of the high school football team. We keep encountering scandals when people who have power and authority abuse that. But it doesn't have to be that way. In his letter to the Thessalonians, St. Paul reminds them how he was when he had authority. Not using it for himself, but rather being gentle and guiding them to what is true and good. Being willing to take on hardship because he loved them so much. And he wanted them to have what is good. And they knew him to be honest and working for the Lord rather than for himself. And similarly, the saint we are celebrating today, Saint Louis of France, or King Louis IX, was well known for using his authority in the right way. He brought peace and justice to his country. He worked to help the poor. He did what he could to protect the faith throughout the world, being willing to undergo great hardship to do it. And rather than seeing what he could get away with for himself, he spent ways and energy trying to serve his people, including in a very literal sense when he would invite 13 poor members of his community for his meals, and often would serve them the food himself. And while we might not have the authority of St. Paul or St. Louis, we too are being called to use the gifts of abilities that we have received, not just for ourselves, but for those around us, and in a special way to serve the Lord, to serve God. We cannot waste our time or our skills or our authority or the other gifts we've been given. Instead, we have to develop those gifts. We have to share them. We have to make sure that we use them to take care of all those that God has given to us, has placed in our path. And each one of us has ways we can do that. Whether it's teaching or being generous with our time or resources. Whether it's by making the time to pray for those who need our prayers. Whether it's reaching out to those who are lonely or trying to encourage those who are going astray to repent and embrace the truth. Whatever way we are called to use the gifts we've been given, we have to respond to that with love. We have to embrace that gift. Because only when we do that does our life reach total fulfillment. Only when we do that, no matter how hard or how challenging our life is, it's still going to be good and happy. Because it's good to be the king. But what it's really great to be is a saint. Because a saint knows just how deeply they are loved by God and is able to enjoy that for all eternity.